Hi everyone, Armored Pants here, and I have another video for you in the Russian line. This is the Tier 8 Heavy, the IS-3. And as always, we have a complete guide starting with the tech spec, and we will have a look at blitzhanger.com for this. Now, I think this is a very important video because the IS-3 is one of the key tanks in Blitz. It's one of the most popular tanks played in Tier 8, one of the most popular tanks played in the whole game. It's a good, solid, well-balanced heavy. As I said, you don't often see a Tier 8 game without one in it, so it's really popular. Apart from the fact that it's a quintessential heavy, very easy to play, very easy to make mistakes with, it's very forgiving. The IS line is also one of the first lines that many players play. Most players play the German or Russian tanks first, and they usually do a heavy line. So the IS-3 is a Tier 8 that many people come to first. Now, it has a variety of guns, as you saw, and there's various different parameters to each, but the top gun is important because the top gun, although it says it has less DPM, it actually has higher pen, and pen is key for giving you actual DPM versus a theoretical DPM, which is here, because if you don't pen, you don't get DPM, right? And why is it important? Well, when you're up at Tier 8, you're going to be playing against Tier 8s, Tier 9s, and you're going to need that extra penetration, which is another reason why you should use supercharge. You can go from 1007 seconds up to 1309 meters per second, and that's very important because supercharge increases that muzzle velocity, and as we know, muzzle velocity is key to penetration. So that will also further enhance your actual DPM, and believe me, you need it with this because even with the top gun, the gun handling on the IS-3 is patchy. Like all Russian tanks, it doesn't have the best of gun handling, particularly compared to its German counterparts, so therefore you need all the help you can get. We see here that the base aiming time is quite good, but if you saw earlier, it's over 12-second reload on your standard rounds, and you know that's pretty tough. It's 38 kilometers per hour in a straight line speed, at 15 backward, which is not bad at all. It's not great. The IS-8 after it is better, but it's not bad. Almost 40 kilometers an hour for a heavy tank. But also what's interesting is that its power to weight ratio is good. If we look at the stats here, and the power to weight ratio, basically that's the data which tells us is it good at accelerating, is it good from a stop-start, from a standstill. And as you can see here, looking at that power to weight ratio, it is pretty good. So and this is different to, let's say, other heavy tanks where the power to weight ratio is poor. So the IS-3, not only is it relatively quick in it also gets to that top speed 38 kilometers quicker than other heavies. Its traverse speed is also very good if we look here, and its concealment is not bad for a heavy tank either. Now, its dispersion is quite high, so therefore I would also use refined gun to lower that dispersion down. This tank is a great armor profile. You can side scrape in this tank. You can see here, we look at the relative armor numbers are very high, and front on, only really the lower plate is vulnerable, and if you can hide that, you're very tough to pen. Particularly if against other Tier 8s or Tier 7s. When you're up there against Tier 9s, you're a bit more vulnerable, but nonetheless, it has a great armor profile. If you look at these relative armor numbers here on the side, it's just amazing. The other thing is it has spaced armor on the side, which means HE and heat is not effective, and this is really important too, because many Tier 8 tanks have heat as their premium round, and heat will not go through spaced armor because heat, I mean, it will, but it will give you some damage, but nothing like the damage, not like a full out roll, because it impacts the spaced armor and then it detonates, and therefore it does far less damage. Now, let's have a look. We break away from the tech spec and let's have a look at the IS-3 in side scraping mode. So here we are, typical, going to base C here in this map, and we are going into a typical side scraping position. Now you can see here that this is very much a typical heavy tank side scraping position to adapt on this map, particularly at base C, which is on the heavy tank channel. Now we see here I took one damage, I wasn't in the right position, but I'm going to bounce shots from now on. So here we are, we've already bounced 500. Forget about me trying to hit Beast Clever and take a nice shot on Tortoise there. Watch this, see that? Slowed it right down here. There's also a shot hit the building, the side of the building, you can see the impact bloom from that. So that's another shot which you could say is blocked. It doesn't count as a block, but it's damage that you're not taking, damage that your allies are not taking. I'm being clever here. I had been playing German tanks earlier today, and I just lost a run of myself trying to pen the tortoise, hitting its cupula. Very difficult to do with the IS-3 gun, and also you don't have too much aiming time. But you can see here, I am just bouncing shots left, right, and center. I try that again and again, and this time it goes through. I had a little bit more aiming time because the tortoise had just fired. So you can see here now we are up to 1,310 damage blocked. Now I blocked that massive roll from Ferdinand. Now we're up to 1,770. And you can just see just how I already have a gold ribbon, and we're only not even 2 minutes into this game. You can see when you're adopting a side scraping position, you can just block so much damage. There we are, over 2,000 damage blocked. Now when you consider the impact of that in the game, right, that is damage that I have blocked. It's damage that I've stopped my team taking, damage I've stopped myself taking. In a tier 8 game, 2,000 is a tank and a quarter. So that's a tank and a quarter. So effectively, if all those shots had gone through, we'd be a tank and a quarter down. That's how important blocking damage is, and that's how good the IS-3 is. That was a really good example of how this tank can side scrape and really do a great job as a frontline tank for your team. Just looking at the spaced armor here again, if you take the spaced armor and the tracks, it's almost impossible to be HE'd or heated on the side. You're vulnerable at your butt, but even then you're not as vulnerable as many other tanks. You do have a little bit of armor. So if a light caliber light tank gets around behind you, he will get surprised and get some bounces, especially if you're wiggling your butt around. So this is a really tough competitor. It's a tough all-rounder as well, in that, you know, it's not spectacular at anything, but it's very forgiving, right? You can reverse side scrape here, as you can see. If you can hide that butt, you can reverse side scrape all day long with this turret and with this side armor profile. And when we say it's a good all-rounder, I mean it's very forgiving, right? So, you know, not being spectacular at anything, but it's not bad at anything, right? So you can go front line of this tank, you can expose yourself mistakenly, you can take hits. Again, just looking at the front armor profile there, it really is a beast of a tank, particularly when you're up against tier 7s or tier 8s. When you're up tiered, of course, as you would expect, it's a little bit more vulnerable, but not significantly so. It's still a very tough competitor. It's a great heavy to learn heavy tank tactics in, because, you know, it allows you to make some mistakes. You know, you can't really be one-shotted in it. You know, you're not going to take huge damage even if you make a silly mistake. You know, it has good high pool of hit points, so you can take 1 or 2 hits, make mistakes, and still be in the game, keep your gun in the game. And that's really why this tank is just a very good heavy tank. Even if you're up tiered, you're not completely outclassed as you are with some other tanks. So this is just an overall good heavy tank, and that explains why it's so popular. It's not the most exciting tank in the world, of course it's not, but it is a good solid performer. If you are going up a heavy line or want to go up a heavy line, the IS line is a very good one to go up, because while the heavy tanks are not the most spectacular, the most exciting, they are good tanks to learn heavy tank craftsmanship in. And that's why the IS-3 is such an important tank. Now we're going to have a look at some gameplay here. This is game 1 Himmelsdorf, and it is Supremacy. This game, by the way, it's also quite important because it's a heavy tank in a Supremacy game which plays a very mobile gameplay. And that's not something you always associate with heavy tanks, but the IS-3, as we said, because of that power to weight ratio, because of that almost 40 km/h top speed, is able to get around the map. It's not like a VK100 OP, it's not like the VK158 or similar heavy tanks that are not really mobile. It is pretty mobile. You can see here how quickly I'm able to get into and cap C. This Supremacy game is a game that goes right down to the wire, right down to the points. I think we win it in the last second by like 2 points or something like that. And if you had been in a different heavy in this game, you wouldn't have been able to do it. So it shows the strengths of this tank in terms of its ability to manipulate a map, which not all heavies can do. Now we are going front line here, missing out here, but you can see we're pushing on. I'm confident in the tank. I'm top tier, so I know I can push around corners. You know, I might take some damage, but I'm not going to take huge damage. And you can see I'm pushing, right? So we've already captured C. We've done D, and you know, we're just pushing in this tank. And this is one of the great strengths of this tank. You can push in it. You know, if you stick that turret above, you are not going to be penned. The turret is almost impenetrable. And you know, you can see now we've gone from C to D, and now we're right up here on B. We're in a position to cap B. We're pushing the reds away from it. And you can see there, by pushing that turret just over that mound, I'm pretty confident that I can fire damage into the enemy and not take any damage myself. You can see here, rolling back 15 kilometers an hour. It's quite agile, getting in and out of trouble. Of course, you shouldn't go side on always to your enemy, but I'm not going side on because the mound of gravel on rubble is protecting me. Now we're on to cap B. So now we can see we are just 2 minutes into this game, and now we are capping the third base in the IS-3. You can do that with very few heavies. And it's not just its speed, it's also its power to weight ratio. Now my team, let's just say, are not the most efficient or proficient. We have been getting demolished here. We are 2 tanks down, but we have 3 bases, and that's when that's going to be the power of this game. We're actually going to come down to points on this. See here, now I'm going to take out him, but now we are 2 against 4. But we have, an only advantage we have is that we are 3 bases, so we're one base up. Now they're trying to even that up. They're doing the right thing. But I am in a relatively agile, as I said, heavy tank, so we are going to go and cap A. Now the best thing that we can do here, because the Jagdpanther 2 is also quite fast and mobile, TD is for us to stay together, because together we're still quite a formidable couple. And you know, so now we're capturing, and he should stay with me, and maybe we have a chance to win this game. Now you can see now we are down on points, but now we've capped, so now it's 2-2. Base capture, you can see there I've gotten the gold banner for base capture, which you often, again, don't see very often with a heavy tank. It's not really a heavy tank role, but you can see me, I am motoring now, right? Now I know that I need to engage, or I need to cap. I need to one or the other. I need to kill, or I need to cap. One or the other, or else we're going to lose. So you can see here now I am going to take him out. There's a target. Miss him, track him, roll back. But in that engagement, 2v1, I just took 1 hit. Not bad exchange for me. Going to push on. He's gone now, but I know that he is going to rabbit. He does not want to be front on against me. So I'm going to try to take out this one shot here. I don't care if I take one in the butt, which I do, because I need to get rid of him, clear him, and that saved the game for us. But still, now it is too close to call. I am going to cap now. I was going to go after him. No, I thought he was just there. No, he rabbited. So now I'm backing up. I'm using maneuverability. I want to put my gun and my strong frontal armor facing where I think he is. And now this is going to come right down to the wire. I've stopped them getting points from C, and it is right down to the wire. The Panther knows he has to do something, so he's coming out to get to us. But there we said, 5-point victory on Supremacy. Really close run thing. One of the closest run Supremacy games I've played in a while. Really enjoyable game. And a game that I would not have been able to win, wouldn't have been able to carry for my team, had I not been in the IS-3. If I had been in a different heavy, for example the Tier VIII Premium, the American Goose, less maneuverable. I've been in a Luva, a low. If I'd been in a Tiger 2, less agile, I wouldn't have been able to achieve that and to get that victory for my team. And I think that's a very good example of how versatile the IS-3 can be.
So let's have a look at a second game, and this is a supremacy game on Falls Creek, and this is actually a mastery game of the IS-3. So I'm top tier in this, and I've spoken before about how forgiving this tank is and how good its armor profile is. So what I decide to do is, and I often do this if I'm top tier in a heavy tank on this map, is I just push immediately, don't bother spotting anything like that, I just push for C. Because if you have a tank with an armor profile like this, you can basically get into this lip here, this small furrow in the ground, and it's almost impossible for the enemy to hit you, or at least to put some damage on you, because you know, with the armor profile of this tank with the strong turret, etc., unless you've got major gun depression, you're not going to be able to hit that lower plate. So you can push on in there with impunity. Pretty sure that as long as your teammates are behind you, stopping the enemy pushing onto you to dogpile you, you've got a pretty good chance of capping that base. You also take a strategic position, so you've basically seized that strategic position on the map, which is exactly what you should be doing in a heavy tank anyway. And you know, you also make it very difficult for the enemy, because you're keeping them spotted up, right? So the proximity spotting is working on the red team, and also you're a complete distraction for them as well, right? The reds don't like having a tank sitting right in front of them like that. It's a distraction, and even if you can't put damage into them, you're taking their attention away. They're looking at you, scoping in on you, zooming in on you, trying to get shots on you, and it's really a distraction for them. So it's a very good strategic position to take in a heavy tank if you're top tier. Of course, you need to have the speed of the IS-3, or if you're an IS-8 or something like that, or if you're Tier 10, IS-7, you know, you need a fast, maneuverable tank to get into that position quickly. Why is that important? Well, if you're in a much slower tank, by the time you are coming over the brow of the hill to go into the delve, you are going to be spotted up, and also the big TDs and heavy tanks on the other side are going to be in position and are going to pump rounds into you. But with the IS-3, you can get there at the same time or even before them, get into that strategic position, and it's just another strength of this tank. You can see here now I've used the maneuverability and agility of the tank to get into position. I've actually flanked, sort of a mini flanking position here in the IS-3, and I'm going to do just lots of damage. This big goose here is a difficult tank to pay in front on, but if you're behind him, as I am now, it's very easy. So you can see just the agility of the tank, maneuverability got me into that position, and I'm able to flank the enemy. You can see here I push on into him, do a kind of crazy Ivan maneuver. Why? Well, we know the SU-152 has a really patchy goal, right? It's really difficult. You really need to be careful with it. If you push on to him quickly, you have a very good chance of that shot bouncing. Why? Because he doesn't have time to get his aim in. The base aim time is very long on the IS-2, as we know. Sorry, on the SU-152, as we know. And yeah, so this is really, that was my tactic there. Here in the brawl, what I did was I reversed to stop the Bavarian Bulldog getting in behind me. I wanted to focus on the big gun first, remove the 152. He's going to do lots of damage. Reversed to back up, get my butt against the building so that the Bavarian Bulldog can't get behind me. I actually did a lot of damage in hitting him as well. My big armor profile really hurt him, and I was able to come out of that with a win for my team and a mastery badge. And again, I think that game is a great illustration of the strengths of the IS-3. Very good tank, very maneuverable, and very forgiving, and a jack of all trades, but master of none, of course. So let's just recap. I mean, this is a very good heavy tank. It's well balanced, right? So not great at anything, but not bad at anything. Very forgiving tank. Quintessential heavy tank in many ways, and and therefore it's great at heavy tank basics. So maybe have a look at the heavy tank guide that we have on here. It has excellent armor. It can side scrape both front and back, as you saw in the demonstration when we looked at in the side scraping. We stopped massive damage for the team. The 122mm gun is decent. It's not great. It's decent though. You know, reload of 12.21 seconds is long, so you need to be careful against other heavies, particularly German ones that have a much faster reload. But overall, it's a well-balanced tank. It's solid at everything, and you know, therefore it allows you to practice heavy tank tactics. You need, of course, to angle this tank to get your bounces to side scrape. And you can play this tank as a frontline heavy. And if you want to refresh on that, watch the guide on channel, you know, seizing strategic positions as I did in the last game of False Creek. I would use supercharger and fine gun, get the penetration up. It's very important because the gun is patchy. But this tank is forgiving, as we said many times, so use it as a hammer. Go front line, play for your team, and if you move, angle, and maximize those relative armor numbers, you will get bounces, you will get steel walls, and you will be able to absorb a lot of potential damage and help your team and yourself. When starting, I would play it front line, because it's forgiving and allows you to make some mistakes. When you get more comfortable with it, you can do fancy maneuvers, as I did in False Creek, like doing the mini flank and stuff like that. The music was Wagner, Flight of the Valkyries in the first game, and the second one was Gustav Holst Mars, the Bringer of War, which I thought was quite apt for the IS-3 because it is a bringer of war and pain to the Reds. So cheers, Mush. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you found it useful. And I guess all that remains for me to say is pants off.